Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Michael Jobson. Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. How are you doing, Michael?
Paul John, thanks a lot. I'm fine, thanks. Hello from Jeddah on the Red Sea in Saudi Arabia.
Now, obviously, you'll be hearing about the fiascos and everything else that's been thrown up with the COVID over here in Scotland. How are things over there for you, Michael?
Yeah, well, look, much the same. To give you a wee bit of background, I came here, in my work in the entertainment industry. I'm a producer. I came here to do a consultancy job on the 29th of February. I came for 3 weeks, and I got caught up in the shutdown, the lockdown, where Saudi Arabia closed their borders. So I was stuck until the repatriation flights began, which was about 6 weeks later. Mm-hmm. And during that period, I got offered a longer term job. So I chose to stay rather than go back to Britain into the chaos that was going on. I live in England in the southwest. My family, my wife runs care homes, that for learning disabled kids. So we took the decision that, from a safety perspective, it was better to let her isolate in our home. I had a place to be where there was no big drama for me isolating in Saudi. But they took quite drastic measures in the beginning. Mm-hmm. They shut the borders immediately. So the numbers didn't show in the first instance, but they've had a second wave here,
right?
So they were quite steady, not dramatic, but steady numbers. Now we've had a second wave. They opened up post one of their holidays and then shut down very quickly afterwards when they saw how quickly the spread was, and they've just done a sort of soft opening again now in August. So I think more controlled than most.
Yeah.
Their medical system's pretty good. There's been no chaos here. I'll put it that way. The testing centres, drive-throughs, very easy for people. I went to a clinic. I've been tested twice in the last 4 months. Very easy to get the test done, very easy to get your results back online within one I got 24 hours later, one I got 48 hours later. So I've taken my own kind of draconian lockdown methods, and I've become I live in a compound, in a little apartment of my own, and I just don't go out. So I'm not mixing with anybody. I've been so entrenched in work anyway, it's kept me focused. Getting a wee bit of football going again's been a big bonus to be able to see. Sad to see that I'm not going to, get the next couple of games.
Absolutely.
Through some stupidity there. But look, I'm ready to come back. I'm leaving on Sunday, taking a repatriation flight, and I'm on my way back for a few months.
Brilliant. You mentioned getting back to watching the football, and of course the world of football was thrown into disarray this week at Celtic, and we might touch on that as well at some point, Michael. Before we started recording here, I was just chatting to you. I said, it was John Colquhoun, in actual fact, that suggested that I speak with you. And it just so happens that we've got quite a lot in common because we both went to the same high school. We're from Fife in Scotland. And I do wonder, obviously I had a lot of friends from, the Ballingery, Logelly kind of areas when I went to high school in St Columbus and Dunfermline. What was the upbringing like for yourself, Michael? Because of course, this creativity that you've been involved in, the art that you've been involved in throughout your life, I always look at that and I think sometimes it's nurtured from working class backgrounds, not exclusively, but
without a doubt, man, you hit the nail on the head. Ballingery. So I was born in Ballingery. I was born in Kirkcaldy, but my home was Ballingery, and then Cross Hill until I was about 9 years old. But there's something very particular about that part of Fife. I think we maybe all battle about this in Scotland, right? Who's the funniest? I mean, I think the folk from Ballingery and Lahore, it takes an awfully funny man to be funnier than those people. The humour factor is incredible. But my parents are both. There's long stories about them and their own beginnings, which were pre-Second World War births into very tough environments. But my father was a miner in the Mary Pit originally in Glencraig, and then latterly at Salisbury Pit, further west. But he was known as the Bard. He was a poet. Right. My dad was a dyed in the wool socialist, union man. He wrote about workers' rights. That was his thing. He was Billy Bragg before Billy Bragg knew who he was. My old man, and my mum was a singer. So we were brought up on the best of country music, and so the kids, there's five of us. My brother Francis was a fabulous artist and allowed to flourish. They never stood in the way of that. John, my next brother, football player, a terrific football player, and ended up as the coach of Dunfermline Athletic, along with Jim Leishman years ago. Great player, John. I think hailed at one point as John Peel's favourite player of the time when he'd scored 50 plus goals in a season for Meadowbank Thistle. I don't think he ever really got to where he should have done. He was a better player than his career showed him to be. I think culture at the time maybe didn't help. Smoking, drinking, living, and then we had the guy who kind of made the such incredible changes in our family. Was Richard, my brother Richard, that was the singer in the Skids. So for me, of course, it had the impact of what he did as a 16-year-old was enormous on the family, because we were thrown into this whole new kind of world of quasi-celebrity, if you like, how do people handle that sort of stuff? Well, for me, I was we moved from Cross Hill to a village called Salin.
I know it well, yeah.
Salin, just up the road from Oakley.
Yeah.
It was to where my father worked at Salisbury Pit, so it was closer to work for him and what have you. Richard was just leaving school, just joined the Skids. I just went to high school. It's 1977. We're in the midst of a revolution in our country, and my life was mapped out for me as an 11-year-old, really. My brother Richard, he went on and did it, with his career. We didn't cross paths much professionally, but it was his influence and his willingness to have me around as a young boy that gave me my route into what I've done for my entire life since. As an 11-year-old, I was in the van with the Skids going to gigs and learning the trade. I was lifting guitars out the back of the van So I remember, I don't know if you remember a guy called Mr. Thomas at St. Columbus. He was a modern studies teacher.
Modern studies, yeah.
He was a particularly hard man. He's a tough guy, and he liked me. I wasn't a bad student, actually. I wasn't a bad, when it came to things like modern studies, because politics interested me, and I loved geography, I loved history, I loved English. The stuff that probably came from my parents, really. A desire to know more about the world and the wider things. Stuff like maths and technical things. I just found like, wow, well, this is boring. What about? I was like, I want to go to Chile. I want to go to Argentina.
Yeah.
But my brother's willingness to have me around, everything changed for me. I knew, I could tell you the date. It was the 24th of October, 1977, and the Clash, Richard Hell and the Voidoids, the Loos, and the Skids played at the Kinema Ballroom in Dunfermline, and I was there. I don't know if you remember the ballroom or Night Magic, or I don't know your age group.
It was the Hollywood
the
Boulevard.
The original ballroom. There was.
Yeah.
So many years later, okay. But in the original kind of a ballroom, it was a very long building, and the stage was on one end. But then there was a secondary stage halfway up the hall, which was what you would probably remember as the DJ booth.
Right.
When you look over it from on the left-hand side. So that's where the Skids played that night. They opened the show as Dunfermline's band, and I remember standing there, and I was wearing a pair of Birmingham bags and a V-neck T-shirt with two stripes on it and no shirt underneath. It was the fashion of the time, right? We've all seen it. I think there's a famous photograph of Bobby Sands probably wearing exactly the same gear.
That's right.
and I had the same haircut, actually, the feather cut. The 70s feather cut. Anyway, my life changed that day. I knew what I was going to do. I knew where I was going. And I'll go back to Mr. Thomas with regards to this, because he was pivotal in all of this as well. So when I went back to school, I had my hair cut off, and the bags were gone, and the striped shirt was gone, and I had a very different perspective on how and who I was and how I was going to be coming out of that experience of seeing Richard Hell and the Voidoids and the Clash, and Joe Strummer was, to me, Bob Dylan. He was our Bob Dylan of the time. So I went back to school as a very different kid. Whether the transformation physically had happened quite at that point, I'm not quite sure. But mentally, it happened over a weekend. And Mr. Thomas took great umbrage to me when he was trying. And what I would say at this stage of my life is that I was disrespectful to the man, and now I would like to shake his hand and apologise. But at the time, I thought I knew better. Was that he was trying to do a careers talk with 7 or 8 kids in his tiny little modern studies class, which I was super interested and super involved in. But I told him, Mr. Thomas, I know what I'm going to do. I don't need to go to university. I'm just going to do school, and then I'm going on the road. I'm going to work for bands.
Mm-hmm.
And he took me outside the office. This kind of audacity of this 12-year-old boy to be talking like that to him. And I understand him, in front of the rest of the class was like, wasn't to be tolerated. Anyway, I mean, you know how brutal he could be. And he was, I won't give you the details, but he was brutal to me, and I felt that brutality. So I never disrespected the guy again, but I'd made my statement, and it came to fruition. I did exactly what I said I was going to do at 12, and the the skids had broken up by the time I was leaving school. And they were just on the verge of breaking up, so that was an avenue for me to go down. I had to go and find my own way. And Susie and the Banshees were my first outlet. My brother Richard lived. They shared an apartment with Steve Severin, the bass player in the Banshees, and they sort of took me on as one of their own. Really, I had a long time relationship with them right through the 90s. In actual fact, and I'm good friends to this day. But of course, my career went off in many different directions.
That's incredible. It's incredible, Michael, that John Colquhoun sees an Echo and the Bunnymen record in our studio and says to me, "You should speak to Michael Jobson." And then it turns out we had the same modern studies teacher. And we probably had the same experience with the same teacher as well.
How about that? Yeah. Well, I loved some of our teachers at that school. Mr. Gudici, particularly fond of. Terry McNeish, even more fond of him. Mr. Mitchell, English teacher.
Mr.
Absolutely.
Mitchell was my English teacher.
That guy. And the
another
assistant.
Celtic fan, Michael. Believe it or not.
Big time. And then Mr. Fennick, the assistant head, Sandy Fennick's dad, Sandy, who did probably one of Scotland's best fanzines that were ever made. Some brilliant people there. I had I had the ones that didn't like me so much, and but I think that was down to the fact I didn't like their classes. I remember getting 6 at the belt he's just passed away, one of the teachers, technical teacher. But I wrote Depeche Mode in ink on a technical drawing desk. Those rubber desks. What a bad thing to do, I properly got lashed for that. But you say the Bunnymen there, and John. John Colquhoun. I met John way after his playing career. Even though I've got connections with some of the staff and that at Celtic over the years. John loves Celtic, and I think when he had to move on, that was hard. But he made his career at Hearts, and he did amazing at Hearts, and he loves them, but he loves Celtic. That's his team.
Oh, that came across loud and clear.
So, but I met John years later, and it was about his love of music and our shared politics. We're both, we're both down the rule socialists, and we've got plenty of stuff to say about that. But John's love of music, he's a Bunnymen fan. Echo and the Bunnymen were very pivotal for me in everything I've done because of their, grace up against your will. Their own grace. Mac, the way he treated me, Will, the way that they treated me. They gave me opportunities that I started working with them as a guitar tech,
right?
In 1985. I had been around the place a bit. I'd done work with Propaganda, with Derek Forbes and Brian McGee. I'd done a lot of work, with the Blow Monkeys, Working Week. I did a lot of kind of cool stuff, young boy making his way. And I suddenly got this opportunity to go and work for Echo and the Bunnymen, who were just my favourite band. Everything about them, the style, the sound, the toe gazing, Will's kind of MC5 influences and Mac's Jim Morrison influences, and the mixture of that, all that intensity in their music. They challenged time code, the discordant sounds that came from them. It's easy to play 3 or 4 chords and sing a nice melody, right? But it's no easy to play stuff that's in different time signatures and play completely discordant music and still create that melody. And then come up with later on Ocean Rain. That's for me, it's up there with Hunky Dory as one of the greatest albums ever written. Absolutely incredible. But I went there as a guitar tech, and very quickly myself and Ian became super close friends. We had shared interests. Football. He's a mad Liverpool fan. And I liked Liverpool at that stage, because of Kenny, really. Because of Dalglish. I was never really a Liverpool fan. I was always more of an Arsenal fan, to be honest with you, which is a bit weird, given their links with Rangers historically and all that. But I think Liam Brady dragged me into the Arsenal. I just loved their style, their swashbuckling style that Arsenal had. It was way more like Celtic, really,
Yeah.
But anyway, I started off as a guitar tech with the Bunnymen, and they gave me this incredible. What word could I use? I was so blessed to arrive there at this time in their transformation into this huge band that they became, because I was given the honor of getting to play live. I went from stringing the guitars up and to getting to play a few songs here and there, and it was a privilege. I was a privileged person. That's the word I was looking for. Enormous privilege that. Who gives that up? You know what I mean. I've worked with a lot of people over the years. Who gives up that piece of real estate on stage with them to another person to bring something to what they're? It's like an artist saying, "Yeah, you can do that blue bit." I mean, like, wow, what an honor!
Yeah,
what an incredible honor I was given, and not only was listening to and working with this band that I loved, some of the greatest songs written of the time. All of a sudden, I found myself, on stage in front of, 35,000 people in Brazil. Touring America. I don't know. I mean, I was taught as my family to be, to be humble, not, stay unassuming. They don't. Richard took all that. Love of adulation from all of he didn't have it for all of us, really, but I could tell you how much I smiled in those days, and never to be beaten. I've had an incredible career in music, but they were my halcyon days, they were my the greatest days of my life, really.
Did you ever think, once you're on that stage and the feeling that gave you, Michael, did you ever think to yourself that you were built for the stage rather than the kind of backstage? Yeah,
it had its moments, and there's a sad tale to that, and it revolved, and it involves the disintegration of a friendship with Ian from the Bunnymen. When they broke up, I never saw it coming. I had gone from being the guitar tech, and I started to learn my trade. Because them, in their own right, they were a very socialist organisation. Everything. We all had more than one job. We operated as a bit of a commune kind of thing. Myself and Jake, the keyboards player that's passed away, we did a lot of kind of administrative work, and I ended up being the production manager. Mm-hmm. So that's what took me into the next level of management in my career. And it was easier for me to do a bit of playing and be the production guy, and they had somebody else looking after the gear, and all that. But they never had management. They when their first management went off, and Bill started the KLF and all that kind of stuff. I often say KLM there. If you're getting old, we did it ourselves. We took care of everything. The band made their own strategic decisions, and I loved all that. That was right up my street. So I moved on, but then they took on. They were having such enormous success. The success of Dancing Horses being in Pretty in Pink elevated them. College radio in America elevated them again. the success was flying at us, and it was going a bit to the argument started to creep in there about publishing splits and who deserves what, Pete, the drummer, the greatest drummer that ever lived, if you ask me, he started to go off the rails a bit, then came back. The disputes about writing, and Ian, then these American managers arrived who told him he was the greatest and he didn't need anybody else. It's not the first time that's happened in rock and roll, and it won't be the last. But that was the worst one for me, to see that happen and watch the band break up and him go off solo. But he was my mate. We were busy mates, and I went off to tour with UB40 when this all happened. Long tour, years worth of work. My firstborn twins had just arrived. I needed to work, and anyway, he called me and said, "Solo record, let's go. We'll do the demos at my house." So I jacked in my job with UB40, went home, moved from North Wales, where my wife and I lived, and moved up to Liverpool. And I got to work on the creation of the first solo album, Candleland. Mm-hmm. Some lovely songs on there. It wasn't sticking the ball in the top corner of any chart nets, if you get the drift. But there was some things on there to be proud of, And anyway, through the process, the backing tracks had all been done, and they were going off to do the vocals and mixing and what have you. And I got a phone call to say that I was no longer required. Couldn't be afforded, And I was like, all right. So I've lost I've left my home in North Wales. I've moved to Liverpool. I don't really want to live in urban Liverpool with my newborn kids. My wife's from the south. She didn't exactly want to be there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What did I do? I've got to get back to work. So I just did what would a father do? I just went back to work. I had a skill set. And I was able to apply that. That's what you do. So I did that. I went straight away. I was away working with the Water Boys. I got a job, and off I went. I was back in the nose to the grindstone in the production world again. Mm-hmm. The album came out, and my input into that record was great. Not just in the writing process, but in the recording process. And he only credited me on the record with playing bass on 2 songs.
Yeah,
that wasn't the truth. And much to my amazement, the title track of the record, Candleland, we'd never worked on apart from me showing him a chord structure. That's the chord structure of that song. He recorded it, wrote it. Wrote the melodies, and didn't credit me with any writing, which he's got form for. He's done it to Johnny Marr. He's done it to a few people. I don't care about saying this in the public domain because, I sued him, I sued Warner Brothers, and I sued Warner Chappell Publishing. But, the record didn't exactly do well. What I needed at that stage of my life was I needed money. Mm-hmm. Feed my family, So I did what I'm actually ashamed of today, and that's I took the settlement. If you were to ask me again today, I would want my credit as a writer.
Yeah.
For what I did, we proved with beyond a shadow of a doubt. I had this guy who scored the strings for Chariots of Fire, was the musicologist appointed by John Kennedy, who was my brother's lawyer at the time, who's now Richard Aschroft's manager and a good friend of mine, the musicologist went through the entire Bunnymen catalogue and proved by previous work that such chords weren't in Ian's repertoire, but they were in mine. So that's what we put on the table. It was going to be a long, drawn-out situation, and what was I going to get out of it? At that time, I needed money. I took the money. They gave me a check, which fed my family for a year. Today, so that's my own fault. I have to take that on the chin, But that's how a friendship was pretty much destroyed. And we moved on. We actually moved to Glasgow for a short period of time.
Right.
I bought a house on the south side, close to my mate, my great pal Brian McGee, from original drummer from Simple Minds. But my wife and the two little kids, I was playing five-a-sides 5 nights a week, and loving being back in Scotland. And what I wasn't getting was that I was leaving my poor, wonderful wife and these two little babies. I was leaving them at home. She just wanted to go home, so we made the move to Gloucestershire, and we've been there ever since.
Right.
That was that phase in the 80s.
When you look back there, Michael, obviously it's great that you've forged this friendship with Ian McCulloch, but it's really sad, obviously, that the industry and the business has resulted in you guys not being friends anymore. That's always a sad thing when that happens. Is that prevalent in the music industry?
I think so, mate. I think so. It is. It's the greed. I don't think it's just the music industry. I think it's industry. People want bigger chunks, don't they? Mm-hmm. I just wanted what was mine. That was all, I mean the dissolution of Echo and the Bunnymen was down to exactly the same thing. Les, the bass player, what a guy, man! What a wonderful human being, and his great passion for boats, the same as I have. He works. He lives in Australia. Works in a boatyard, and he's a happy guy. But what he's got is his memories of that he was intrinsic in that great Echo and the Bunnymen. The guy with the bass up high that managed to play the same bass riff in every song, just in a different key. And there's a brilliant bass riff, by the way. And then there's Pete dead, Jake dead. There's Mac and Will. I mean, I've had dialogue with Ian over the years since, he knows how I feel about it. We wouldn't talk about it. There'll be no rows or anything. It's what it is. I took the settlement. Mm-hmm. That's you make a deal, it's done, right? So I'm not crying over spilled milk here. I'm just telling you a story, right? I've got to accept that I made a decision. I could have carried on with a court case, and I would have won. But I'd have had the songwriting credit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, I wrote a song last week for my granddaughter. I'm super proud of that. I still play every day. I still, I've got even here in my little apartment in Jeddah, I've got 2 guitars sitting there, and I still have a go. Got a bit of arthritis in the old fingers these days, but
See, when you moved away from Glasgow, Michael, it would have been good for you, obviously, being in Glasgow to get a chance to go and watch your beloved Celtic again. And what era were we talking there? Was that probably in the 1990s?
That was 1990.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, an era when we were battling, the Dundee United semi-final in was it in 1990 or was it 89?
1990, the League Cup semi-final. Yeah.
Yeah. Oof. Wow, still standing in the jungle at that time, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And amazing. My first game was St Johnstone at home in 1973, I think. And it was Richard that took me.
Right.
Richard took me to see Celtic. Yeah, Celtic. I love the Celtic.
And you would have seen the great George Conley, Michael, another
George
St
Conley,
Columbus alumni. Yeah.
Well, you know, he played for my brother John. When my brother John was the manager of Oakley, George would come and have a game for Oakley, you know.
Brilliant.
John tells a great story. He says to him, George said to my brother, he said, John, I'm going to stay behind after training tonight and practice my long passes here. He says, my 60-yard pass is about 3 inches off. You should talk to my brother John, actually.
I'd love to.
To get some football anecdotes. Anecdotal conversation there will be fabulous. John will have a different perspective on, you know, life with, you know, Richard and our parents and all that, you know, because he truly was a Ballingery boy. Yeah, you know what I mean? He signed for Raith Rovers at 16. He was playing for Logelly Albert and signed for Raith Rovers when he was a 16-year-old, you know, and Rosyth Dockyard, you know, part-time football playing, all that kind of stuff. But he's got a great football mind, my brother John, as well as boxing, you know. Boxing's huge in my family. My dad was like a, I don't know, man. He was a database of boxing information. You know, he could tell you who was on the undercard of a fight in Detroit that Sonny Liston fought in 1962. You know, he would come up with stuff like that. You know, just amazing. You know, I had it kind of B-sides to singles. I used to be able to say, you know, the song that was on the B-side of you know, that Human League single being boiled, and you know what I mean. That kind of stuff, geeky stuff. John would be great to talk to.
Oh, I'd love to. There's a great picture of him actually in the Barber Club in Dunfermline. There's a brilliant picture, and I think George Best is playing against the
back against Hibs.
Yeah.
John said, George says to him, "You had some game tonight. You want to fancy a pint?"
That's a Ballingery boy, eh?
Amazing. You know, when we moved to Cross Hill, our house backed onto Ballingery Rovers. The Rovers football ground. Mm-hmm. Is it the Ballingery? Is it the? No, not the Rovers. What are they called? Christ Almighty, that's terrible. Lahore Welfare.
Right.
Lahore Welfare. So we would stand on the coal bunker and watch the games. We didn't have to go in, you know. My grandfather played the goals for them. And, you know, he grew up watching junior football like that, you know. A lot of savage stuff there.
Oh, definitely. It's a different world.
We grew up in a place in Fife, man, in Cross Hill. I mean, we had a cricket club. That's how developed Cross Hill was, you know. It was run by my uncle Jim Merritt, English guy that married my dad's. It's not really my uncle, but kind of my uncle, you know. What a place, man! Ballingery, Cross Hill, Lahore, amazing place.
Brilliant. You know, when you move away from Glasgow, Michael, you continued within the music, the world of music, and the industry. Did you move right? You continue with the management side of it after that as well.
Well, I'll tell you, it's a funny story. This is a good segue into this very funny story. When I moved away moved back to Gloucestershire, I was at a sort of impasse. I was in a place where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do here. You know, I've got no roots. All of a sudden, not in control. My wife was in control. You know, she'd moved us. So no longer was it based around us being in London. That was my work. We went to North Wales because I worked with the Bunnymen and it was easy to commute. We went to Liverpool because I worked with the Bunnymen. We went to Glasgow because I worked with so-and-so. Yeah, you know, I worked with Hue and Cry. I worked with quite a few Scottish acts of the day. But then we moved back to Gloucestershire, and I was like, wow, all of a sudden, it's not me making the decisions. And I was at a kind of, what do I do about work? Anyway, the Bunnymen had this guy that worked for them as a tour manager, an Australian guy called Ted Gardner. And he had gone from tour management into management, and he managed this American rock band called Jane's Addiction. And they were coming to Europe to do 3 months of touring. And he said to me, there you go, it's yours. So I went to the next level of my work where he looked after the band, but I created this kind of hybrid situation for myself where I was the production manager, so looking after the technical aspects of the shows and the advancement of that and looking after the crew and the travel and all that stuff. But I also did the finances.
Right.
Which I was always pretty good at, anyway, so I became the kind of quasi-tour accountant. Bearing in mind here, I am 25 years old at that time, 25, yeah. Still kind of young, really, for that sort of responsibility. But it took me on then, So Jane's Addiction, Perry Farrell, I became entrenched in this organisation. I go to America with him, and he's the founder of the Lollapalooza Festival.
Right.
So there I go. There's the next 6 years of my life. Goes into being the working with them and being the stage manager of the Lollapalooza Festival, to which I met the next set of people that I moved on to the next set of work with. So it's kind of how the old adage of it's not really what you know, it's who you know, right? And if you've got if your personality can see you through, and you've got the guile. I mean, that's being Scottish, right? We have to have, that's our word. We own that word, guile. You've got to have the guile to take the job on, even if you think I'm not actually 100% qualified for this, but I'm going to do it. You've got the nuts to go after it, and I just spent my young life doing that because I figured I've got to test myself. And I'm not sure I was actually even saying that to myself. I was doing it through necessity, because I've got a built-in terror mechanism of not being able to provide. Mm-hmm. I think that's your upbringing. I think we all. I don't know if for yourself, but from where I come from, with the next generation from the Victorian parent, it's about putting food on the table. Make sure that your mortgage is paid. Make sure that your kids have got school clothes. And I don't think I functioned outside of that scope of terror until the turn of the 2000s, mm-hmm. when I started a production company, and my financial position became more stable. And I wasn't a paycheck worker. If you understand what I mean by that, running a company and taking the responsibility that goes with that, I never felt anxiety, but I was driven. If you understand, mm-hmm. I was driven to always work, and I never sat on my hands. Always, when I probably should have taken a month off and spent it with my children. No, I've got to work. I've got to do it. Got to keep working, and I did that. So my CV's long. A lot of guys have got quite short CVs because they spend their entire careers working for particular acts. I finished the tour and just went to another. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times what happened with me would be that I would take that other tour, that if I had taken 5 months off, then I went back to the previous people. But so I've always been kind of transient, moving around. So there's the stresses that go with that too. Being a bit of a Bedouin sort of character. keep on moving and keep reinventing. It kept on happening. It's still happening. I had my phase with Amy Winehouse, with Florence and the Machine, and then lots of rock bands, Slayer. I did all sorts of stuff, through the 2000s. James were probably my, one of my favourites. Doves, who I looked at for a lot of years. Wonderful, great friend, and Jimmy, the singer, and Dave, the manager, two very close, dear friends of mine. But then post Amy Winehouse's death, I happened upon this whole new genre again this whole new area of electronic music that I'd never really kind of crossed my desk before, And I ended up looking after the Swedish House Mafia and Avicii, and so I had a couple of high-profile deaths in the space of 6 years.
Yeah,
that took a heavy toll on me, really, and I ended up in the middle of this decade that we're in. Or is this the end or the start of a new one? The previous one, then, perhaps, in the first time in my life feeling some pretty dark times, depression, really heavy, and I didn't, people say, what you got to be worried about, you own properties, you own a boat, your family are all grown up, you've not got any debts, but that was that's never been materialism's never really been that's no, providing, yes, but, I just didn't, I felt like I'd lost my way. I'd bought into a type of life that had become a bit alien to me. I invested myself in what I was actually doing when I come through the other side of it was I was nesting for the future, for retirement.
Yeah.
And I read it all wrong, I started to beat myself up about being capitalist and, that bad to have a bank balance. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But when you're working as hard as that, you
I was 50 years old, man, and the resounding memory would be of me being 11, telling Tam Thomas I knew what I was going to do, and then all that space in the middle went past like the rest of the game after we got to 5-1 against Rangers. You just want it to go on you want that game to go on for another 3 hours, don't you? But it's over in a flash, which is what it is, which is what it was for me. But it was a dark time. I had a really dark time of it, and I went and did I met this guy, I was being pretty not self-harming, but psychologically I was harming myself, Depression and anxiety it's a terrible place to be, man. Circular thinking, and when you're, the potentials that can come with that, I considered the worst of things, I considered suicide in all of this. I think the loss of my mother played a part in it all. But really, what it came down to was I needed to find somebody to bounce off, to talk to about what was going on with me. And I met this guy, an Irish fella, good Celtic boy. His name's John Trollan. He's a councillor. He lives in Stroud in Gloucestershire. Mirror upbringing, but in Ireland, same socio-economic background, same age, same education, same views, same kind of trials and tribulations that have gone on in life. So I identified with him. I'd been to loads of people to talk about these problems I was having, and John convinced me that I needed to just simply make time for myself and take care of myself, and soothe as much as you would put a cold compress on an injured shin at the football, put the same cold compress on your ailing brain, on your mind that's tired and has gone through 4 decades of serious battering.
Mm-hmm.
My database was full. I had no space for anything else. So I went and did the Camino de Santiago. I walked from Irún in northern Spain across Biscay to Santiago de Compostela. I did it in 30 days, and I regained so much self-confidence from that, from a man that started to doubt himself so much.
Yeah.
And then I've got this old. I've actually sold it now, but it's an old wooden boat that has an incredibly rich history. And I went and sailed it round the British island, as well as including the stolen counties in there. I went for a visit over there because the boat lived there for a while and spent quite a bit of time in Scotland, as we came around. I did that in a couple of months, and I came out the other side of it where I realised that I have to be kinder, and I think everybody, all of us, the lesson that comes out of that is you've got to try and be kind to yourself. Kindness to other people, and I've been involved in that community kindness, personal kindness, financial kindness, whatever kind of kindness you want to, kindness of spirit, kindness of word, whatever I've tried to be that guy, but what I realised was that I actually wasn't very kind to myself, and it took me to a very dark place where the statistics out there of men of my age that do commit suicide are pretty devastating, and I was really close. I was really close to doing that. If not for my little granddaughter, who's been named after my mother, I think that could well have happened.
Michael, I'm blown away that you've actually shared that with me, and all strength to you for getting through it as well. It's incredible to get through that and to be able to reflect on it, and you figured out what caused it. That's the big thing,
Yeah, I mean, you can't say it's the same for everybody, right? But people in a fragile place, need to look for a soft landing so that they don't break into pieces, And I found I was very lucky to find some people that could help me and to help myself, because ultimately you've got to help yourself. In those situations, you can't if you just rely on the help from others, you're not repairing the damage. So I've gone through a process of rebuilding, and here I am in a new venture again. Having and the test was incredible. Coming here I am in 2020, and I got to work in 2019 with one of my all-time heroes. I got the job as tour manager of Richard Aschroft in 2019. And Richard to me is the Bob Dylan of our lifetime. He's just the most fantastic songwriter. The message, his stance, just everything about the guy. I had a funny encounter when my self-confidence was at an all-time low. A really good a friend of mine at the time, I had given him an enormous amount of work over the years. I would say enough work that probably bolstered his company, and he was entrenched in the organisation with Richard, and I was suggested at the time when I was really low and I could have done with it, to get my spirits up. Mm-hmm. He passed me by, said that I was the wrong personality to work with Richard, and that knocked me down. I mean, it's not his fault. He made a judgment call, but we're about give and take in business, right?
Yeah.
I scratched his back for a long time. I just needed I had a wee itch on the end of my nose that needed scratching, and he wasn't prepared to do it, So I want, that's all right. But round the other side of things, I go back to John Kennedy. Mm-hmm. John Kennedy, who represented me in my case with Ian, is now Richard's manager. And through another great friend of mine, Ivan Kushlik, who is the Kings of Leon's tour manager, Ivan told John that I was available, and John was like, what a brilliant idea. He would fit perfect with Richard. And what's happened is, you don't always want to make friends with the people you work with. But Richard's got his country house very close to where I live in Gloucestershire. We've made friends. I don't just work for him. I help him out. We're pals. And it played such an enormous part in my healing process.
Brilliant.
It was just to be happy at work, to stand on a stage. I'd gone through all those years listening to this electronic dance music that I worked in that I had no respect for. I had plenty of respect for the people. Mm-hmm. But I just had no respect for the music, really. Play it is what I say. There's nothing live in the pen drive.
Right enough. And again, I could be wrong in this, Michael, but I think Richard has got a bit of a liking for Celtic as well.
Richard, my brother, yeah, we all have. The whole family. We're dyed-in-the-wool Celtic fans. Richard's a passionate Celtic supporter, and Arsenal, same. We've gone to many Arsenal games together. I'm a bit more passive. Richard's quite an aggressive character. He doesn't mind a row here and there. We don't see so much of each other these days, but Celtic's in our blood. It's on my arms. I don't know if you can see from
I can see that. Brilliant.
My children's name and my and the claddagh on the other arm. I'm all about it. I would get when I had long grey hair, I'd get many shouts of people thinking I was the big yin. When I went to the game.
Superb, Michael. Hopefully, if our paths cross and you're in Scotland, we can maybe meet up at Celtic Park sometime. It's been fascinating listening to your story. I went to school with Mr. Thomas's son, Guy, believe it or not. So it's incredible how these things work out. But I have thoroughly enjoyed chatting to you about your life and times, and hopefully we can catch up again sometime. All this way for me it's been fascinating, and you've been through a battle and a struggle and you managed to get through it, and I find that quite inspiring to hear that as well, Michael. So good on you.
Well, thanks. I think I've got a duty to get it out there. There's people suffering, mm-hmm. and they don't need to suffer. There's help. If absolutely anybody hears this that just needs somebody to talk to, you can give out my email address, and then I'll deal with personal contact from there. I have no problem with it. It's a terrible blight. Aside from the fact that probably anybody listening to this loves Celtic as much as I do, and we'll have plenty to talk about the hoops, but I'm there to give a bit of myself as well if I can, and I don't even know why I've never said that before, but these are my people here. I feel I'm from the same, so I'm prepared to give if I can, if I can be any help to anybody. Just maybe helping people to find somebody to talk to or whatever. And anyway, even if it's not that, just to talk about Celtic. Come on.
Exactly. Michael, that's an incredible gesture. And if anybody does come through, I'll certainly put them in touch with you. But
okay.
all that's left for me to say is a massive thank you for joining me today on A Celtic State of Mind. It's been a real pleasure, and I'll stay in touch, okay?
Please do, yeah.